"Jack, after 17 years, we are letting you go. Your supervisor declared bluntly, clear out your workspace. By the end of today, my name is Jack Wilson. I am 54 years old, and until that Monday morning, I held the position of Senior Systems Analyst at Meridian Technologies located in Columbus, Ohio. For nearly 2 decades, I had been the pillar of the IT department, from the early days of dial-up internet to the current era of cloud migration. 3 CEOs had come and gone, while I remained constant training every new recruit, retrieving every lost file, working through weekends and holidays, without asking for a raise or praise. So, when David summoned me to his office with Vanessa from Human Resources already seated, I sensed what was coming. Before he uttered a word, the atmosphere had shifted weeks earlier. I said quietly, "I completely understand," nodding, once then left, without speaking further. No anger, no begging, just calm acceptance. Returning to my desk, I noticed younger colleagues glance in my direction, then quickly focus back on their screens. News spreads quickly. Most were programmers I had personally trained, good kids, but they lacked understanding of what was really integrated into our systems, or how the legacy architecture functioned. None could navigate the bespoke software I had created, or find the administrative credentials hidden 3 layers deep in every system. I started packing my belongings carefully, my family photograph, my coffee mug crafted by my son in high school, the small cactus that had somehow survived 17 years under harsh fluorescent lights. Beth from marketing stopped by, her expression tight with worry. "Jack, I just heard this is..." It was absurd. I had practically built this place myself. I shrugged as companies shifted their focus, often without warning. After everything I had contributed, her voice rose, drawing attention. I said quietly, "It's fine." In truth, it was not fine, but I refused to cause a scene. As I was leaving, David came out of his office to watch me walk away. No goodbye, no handshake, just surveillance to ensure I actually left. What none of them had ever noticed over the years was that I had become the most meticulous person in the entire building. Not because I was extraordinary, but because I was thorough. I recorded everything and had established secure audit procedures long ago to monitor unauthorized access at the legal team's request after a previous scandal. I even kept copies of the data in my car. I paused for a moment, looking back at the 12-story building where I had spent the majority of my adult life. The security badge I had just handed in had been renewed 16 times. I started the engine and drove away, knowing they had no idea that Wednesday was going to be eventful. I had been with Meridian since it was just 2 floors in a small business park. I began there when my daughter Olivia was in kindergarten. Now she was about to finish graduate school. The company expanded and I grew alongside it, declining offers from rivals because loyalty was important to me. My wife Andrea used to joke that the servers were my second family, and she was not entirely wrong. I knew every system, every workaround, and every hidden solution to the problems that arose. The executives were unaware of the infrastructure I had built. It managed to endure 3 company buyouts and numerous innovations that leadership initially supported, but then discarded a few months later. David became my supervisor 5 years ago. He was a young MBA type who referred to our department as IT resources instead of personnel. He had plans to enhance efficiency using digital transformation jargon, which often meant accomplishing more with fewer resources. At first, I attempted to help him grasp our systems, explaining the complexity accumulated over years of growth and adaptation we needed to secure for the future. He would say this during meetings, seemingly ignoring me. 6 months ago, he hired a consultant named Jason Phillips, a man in an expensive suit from a prestigious firm, with a Stanford degree proudly shown on his LinkedIn page. They would huddle in conference rooms, speaking softly whenever I passed by. 3 months ago, I noticed small adjustments being made to my access permissions. Nothing glaring, only minor tweaks to administrative controls. I could have objected, but I chose instead to observe and take notes. One evening, Andrea mentioned, "You seem distracted lately. Is everything all right at work?" I nodded while drinking my beer and replied that it was just changes, nothing unfamiliar. However, this time, the changes felt unlike anything before. I was being pushed aside during meetings, excluded from emails about system updates, and younger colleagues received assignments I would usually handle. Then I discovered a company-wide memo regarding modernization projects that had never been shared with me. For me, It meant a complete overhaul of the IT department under the guidance of new leadership, Jason Phillips. My role was not even listed on the organizational chart. On that very day, while performing a standard security scan, one of those background tasks that everyone else had given up on, I detected unusual activity in our financial software. There were consistent transfers to a vendor I had never encountered before, Apex Solutions Group. A quick investigation revealed that the company was only established last year and used a business address linked to a UPS store. The authorized payments began modestly, but steadily increased each month. I kept silent and simply recorded the findings, copying the data and continuing my observations. Sometimes the quiet person in the room notices everything exactly because others assume he is oblivious. Early the next morning, after I was dismissed, I sat alone in my home office staring at my personal laptop. No alarm had gone off, no commute awaited me, just silence and the heavy reality of the situation. Andrea brought me coffee, setting it down quietly without speaking. After 19 years of marriage, she instinctively knew when I needed time alone. "I'm heading to the store," she said. "Will you need anything?" I shook my head. Once she left, I opened the bottom drawer of my desk and retrieved a flash drive. It was one of several I kept under strict security. Even though company policy forbade removing any data, years ago when the legal department required an auditing system to monitor possible insider risks, I had been very clear about the need for such precautions. They had approved off-site backups and then promptly forgotten about them. I connected the device and started going through the files, internal emails, meeting notes I was not supposed to see, and financial documents that regular employees never got access to. Among them was a complete record of payments to Apex Solutions Group, totaling nearly $1,800,000 over a year and a half. The chain of approvals led directly to our CFO, Brian Wilcox. I investigated further, checking dates and numbers until a pattern became clear. The payments matched up exactly with a series of software license renewals for company-wide systems, but the amounts were inflated, sometimes by 15%, other times by 20%, small enough to avoid immediate suspicion, but enough to accumulate significantly. I looked up the business registration for Apex Solutions Group and found the owner was Thomas Wilcox. A quick search on social media confirmed what I had feared. Thomas was Brian's brother-in-law. They were diverting company money through false markups on legitimate bills. I leaned back in my chair feeling a shift inside, not anger exactly, but something colder and sharper. For 17 years I had fixed problems, repaired systems, and safeguarded data. I had always been the dependable one, the calm presence who never stirred trouble, and now they had discarded me like obsolete equipment. My phone buzzed with a message from Stephen, a junior analyst I had mentored for the last 2 years. He wrote, "Sorry about yesterday. That was completely unfair what they did. Phillips is already moving into your old office." I set the phone down without responding. Piecing everything together at last, David and the CFO wanted me out before anyone could uncover their plot. They probably assumed the proof would vanish with me, thinking I was just an old tech guy clueless about modern finance. I opened my email and started composing a note to the board of directors, but hesitated, my finger hovering above the send button. Too blunt, too simple to dismiss as the spiteful words of a dismissed employee. I needed leverage, precision, a method to reveal the deceit that could not be ignored or hidden. I erased the draft and began making other plans. The next day was Wednesday, the day of the board meeting. The quarterly financial reports would be shared and bonuses approved. Perfect timing. I shut my laptop and walked to the living room window, gazing out at the neighborhood where we raised our children and built our home. For the first time since yesterday, I found myself smiling. Wednesday morning arrived, and I sat in my car across the street from Meridian's headquarters. Watching workers flow through the revolving doors, my laptop was open beside me, signed into an email account I had set up years ago for security testing. It seemed to come from an internal company domain, but was not monitored in the main directory. Precisely at 9:15 a.m., I pressed send on my first move, an email to David with the subject, "Financial Irregularities Urgent Review Needed," and a concise summary of what I had uncovered about the Apex payments. The information provided contained just enough specifics to seem believable, but avoided mentioning the brother-in-law connection. If David were involved, he would panic. If not, he would investigate. Either way, I was certain to uncover something. By 9:45, my phone rang, showing David's number. I let it go to voicemail. His message said, "Jack, we need to talk about your email. Call me back right away." I chose not to reply. Instead, I drove to a coffee shop, set up my laptop, and waited. At 10:30, another email arrived, this time from Vanessa in HR. Mr. Wilson, we have received troubling communications from you that might breach your separation agreement. Please stop all contact with Meridian employees and remember your confidentiality duties. Any further communication may lead to legal consequences. That was their strategy: intimidate, threaten, and isolate. I had not signed any separation agreement. At noon, I went to my bank to check my safe deposit box. Inside, I found an older backup containing crucial details I had not saved on my usual drives. Among the files were the original security protocols I created, including records of who accessed which systems and when changes were applied. According to these documents, Brian Wilcox had personally requested broader access to the financial approval systems about 18 months ago, just when the Apex payments started. Back at home, I noticed 3 missed calls from David, Vanessa, and now Jason Phillips. I hadn't expected Jason Phillips to get involved so soon. Interesting. I checked my personal email and found a message from Steven, marked Urgent Jack. He said you sent an outrageous email about financial fraud. Phillips called an emergency meeting and everyone is talking about it. They are revoking your access to everything, including historical data. We need to do our jobs. What is happening? Poor guy caught in the middle. I sent a brief response warning him not to get involved. Later at 3 in the afternoon, my home phone rang from a number I had not used for work in years. I answered, but said nothing. It was Brian Wilcox. His tone was calm and controlled. "We should discuss your concerns. I believe there has been a misunderstanding." "Is that what you call it?" I replied. "Look, transition times are always challenging. If you have questions about the company's finances, there are proper channels such as the board." I interrupted the silence. "The board does not need to be bothered with daily operations. Why not meet tomorrow, just the 2 of us, and resolve this?" "Sorry, I'm busy tomorrow," I said. "Besides, I think the board might be very interested in Apex Solutions Group and your brother-in-law." His sharp intake of breath revealed everything. "You are making a grave error," he finally said. "We can fix this with a generous severance package, references, whatever you need. Goodbye." I said goodbye, Brian, and hung up. Within 10 minutes, Vanessa emailed me again. Suddenly, my severance offer had doubled, with an agreement attached that required total confidentiality about all company matters. The situation was chaotic, yet they still believed they were facing a simple blackmail case. Little did they realize what was about to unfold. Thursday morning brought clarity and confirmation as I spent the entire night analyzing years of data, connecting dots that had previously escaped my attention. The Apex scheme was not Brian's first attempt at creative accounting. 3 years prior, soon after he became CFO, another pattern surfaced: consulting fees paid to a company named Lakeside Business Solutions. Different name, same scam, exaggerated invoices for services only partially or never delivered. I followed the registration details for Lakeside, which led to Patricia Wilcox, Brian's wife. She was apparently the CEO of a firm with no website, no employees, and merely a virtual office address. But the most striking discovery came when I dove into email records. David was not only aware of these dealings, but had actively helped arrange them. In return, his department obtained budget increases while others underwent cuts. He had been hired specifically because the previous director had begun questioning such expenditures. Even Jason Phillips was involved. His consulting firm was selected through a suspicious process that avoided normal procurement rules. His actual task was not to modernize IT, but to remove the sole person likely to detect the financial irregularities. The plan was masterful in its straightforwardness: establish seemingly legitimate vendors, approve inflated payments, and they were splitting the difference since the actual services were delivered only at inflated rates. Auditors focusing on blatant fraud would overlook it. Over a period of 3 years, they diverted nearly $4,300,000. I compiled all the information into a detailed report, with spreadsheets illustrating the pattern of price increases, business registrations connecting the companies to Brian's family, and email exchanges revealing David's awareness and involvement. Then I took a surprising step and reached out to Robert Chen, a board member I had worked with years ago on a security project. He was semi-retired, but still attended quarterly meetings. When I called, Jake Wilson answered quickly. "Long time no see. Heard you left Meridian not by choice." I replied, "Robert, I need 15 minutes of your time. This is important." There was silence. Then Jake asked why Brian and David had been meeting, looking tense. "Yesterday's board meeting was rough, probably," he laughed. "I always thought you knew where the skeletons were hidden. Where shall we meet?" An hour later, we sat in a park 3 miles from headquarters. I handed him a sealed envelope containing a printed summary and a flash drive. "This is everything," I said. "Dates, amounts, connections. I'm not asking for my job back or money. I just want the right people to find out." Robert studied me carefully. "Why come to me?" "Because you actually read audit reports. I've watched you in meetings where you ask the right questions." He nodded slowly and said, "There is an emergency board session tomorrow." The Finance Committee's review was timely and convenient. Jack mentioned something about pocketing the envelope. If this is verified, there will be grave consequences. I am relying on it. As I headed back to my car, my phone vibrated with a message from Andrea. Someone named Jason Phillips had stopped by the house seeking me, claiming it was urgent. I told him I was not home, but noticed they were becoming increasingly desperate. Later that afternoon, I received job proposals from 2 rival companies, both offering positions considerably higher than my last role. Each came with generous signing incentives. News had clearly spread about my sudden availability, but I set those offers aside. My focus was not on securing new employment, but on concluding what they had started that evening. Using access credentials that should have been deactivated, but apparently were not due to carelessness, I logged into the company's email system one final time as Jason. I scheduled a message to be sent to every board member at 8 o'clock the next morning with the subject, "Before you approve second quarter bonuses," and attached my comprehensive report. Friday morning arrived bright and clear. Sitting on my porch with a cup of coffee, I observed the neighborhood stirring awake. No alarm to get up to, no stressful commute, just waiting. Exactly at 8 o'clock, my arranged email reached the board members. By 8:17, my phone began to ring repeatedly from unknown numbers, likely belonging to board members or their assistants scrambling to contact me. I let all calls go to voicemail. At 9 o'clock, the Emergency Finance Committee meeting was set to begin, and Robert Chen was expected to be there, along with Holding the documentation and watching reactions unfold was intense as my email became a topic of discussion. At 9:32, Stephen sent a text saying, "The police are here. Wilcox and David are being questioned in conference rooms. Phillips looks unwell. What did you do?" I did not reply immediately. Everything was unfolding exactly as I had predicted. By 10 o'clock in the morning, Meridian's general counsel called. Unlike previous calls, I answered this one. Patricia Graves from legal stated, "Mr. Wilson, we need you to come in right away to discuss the information you gave to the board." I responded, "I'm available by phone." She insisted, "This really needs to be discussed in person." I calmly interrupted, "No, it does not. All the information I possess is in that report. Everything is already backed up in several secure locations. If anything happens to me or my family, copies will be sent to the SEC, the IRS, and 3 news agencies." After a pause, she said measuredly, "Mr. Wilson, the board is treating this matter with utmost seriousness. They have already placed several executives on administrative leave while the investigation continues. They expect your cooperation. I have fully cooperated by submitting complete documentation. My role is finished." After she ended the call, I drove to a diner about 20 miles outside Columbus. There was no reason to be easily found today. During lunch, breaking news appeared on local business sites. Meridian Technologies executives were under investigation for financial irregularities. No names were mentioned yet, but that would come at 2 o'clock. At that moment, Robert Chen called. "It was a complete disaster," he said without any introduction. Brian admitted everything as soon as we confronted him with the proof, trying to negotiate by blaming David for pressuring him. David denied all allegations, and Jason Phillips, a common English name and surname, insisted he was only a consultant with no involvement in financial affairs. However, the board was not convinced. All three have been suspended until a thorough investigation is completed. Forensic accountants will arrive early Monday. Preliminary findings indicate that at least $4,500,000 have been misappropriated over a span of 3 years, possibly even more. I silently acknowledged that I had been close to uncovering the truth. The board wanted to speak with you, Robert. He went on to say that they were considering bringing me back, not just to my previous job, but also to a brand new role of Chief Security Officer, reporting directly to the board. I had suspected such an outcome, but still found myself taken aback. I replied that I would need time to think it over. That evening I shared everything with Andrea, a common English name, who listened carefully without interruption before asking, "What do you want to do?" That was indeed an important question. The part about revenge was over. Those who had forced me out were now themselves being ousted and probably facing criminal charges. Justice had been served, unambiguous and swift. Yet going back to Meridian meant returning to the very place that had dismissed me after 17 years of dedication. Could I do it? Did I want to? Finally, I said, "I need time to decide." Later that night, I opened my laptop one final time and posted a single note on my otherwise inactive LinkedIn profile. Never burn bridges, just let them collapse under their own weight. Within just minutes, their own greed had surfaced. Former coworkers started contacting me as news spread swiftly. The quiet tech specialist had single-handedly exposed 3 top executives without uttering a word. By Monday, everyone would realize exactly who they had undervalued. Monday morning, I strode into Meridian's main office clad in a suit I hadn't worn for many years. The security guard blinked in surprise, then promptly issued me a visitor badge. "Welcome back, Mr. Wilson," he said with a new tone of respect. The elevator ride to the executive level was unusually silent. I had never needed to visit this floor before. Now I was expected in the boardroom. Around a gleaming conference table sat 10 board members. Robert Chen gave a slight nod as I walked in. The interim CEO, who had previously been the chief operating officer, seemed uneasy. "Mr. Wilson," she began, "thank you for coming. The situation you uncovered is extraordinary." I stayed quiet. "The full scope of the fraud seems far worse than first thought," she added. "Our forensic team has traced nearly $5,200,000 redirected from the company. Criminal proceedings are underway." Still, I remained patient. Robert cleared his throat. "Jack, the board has unanimously decided to create a new executive role, Chief Information Security Officer. This position comes with full executive rights and answers directly to the board. We would like to offer you this role." I placed my folder on the table. "Here are my terms," I stated firmly. "Non-negotiable." The CEO opened the folder and scanned the contents. Her eyebrows lifted in surprise. The audit authority extended across all divisions with independent power to veto budgets concerning financial technology decisions. I nodded in agreement, acknowledging how unusual this arrangement was. She said it had been unusual indeed. I responded that embezzling $5,200,000 happened because no one had been paying attention. The room fell into silence at my words. I declared, "You have until noon." Rising to leave, I mentioned I had other offers. Robert then asked, "Did you plan this all along, Jack?" Pausing at the door, I admitted I had not intended to be dismissed after 17 years. Everything that followed was simply me continuing to identify systemic weaknesses and implementing the necessary security measures. At 11:47, they called to say all conditions had been accepted. 6 months later, I found myself in my new corner office reviewing security protocols for the upcoming quarter. The view stretched across the Columbus skyline, serving as a daily reminder of how much had transformed. Brian Wilcox had admitted guilt on multiple fraud counts. In return for his cooperation, he would receive a reduced sentence, though still a harsh punishment. David was contesting the accusations, claiming ignorance of the scam despite the mounting evidence. Jason Phillips had fled to Brazil, but was in the process of being extradited. Most of the stolen money had been recovered, enough to prevent the company from suffering serious financial harm. My former team now reported directly to me, although I had promoted Stephen to handle daily operations. The young man had promise, but required guidance to unlock his potential. Suddenly, a knock at my door caught my attention. Andrea was standing there, smiling brightly. "Are you ready for lunch?" she inquired. I nodded, grabbing my jacket as we moved along. The discussions in the IT department fell silent for a moment, not out of fear but from respect. These people understood what had transpired and realized I might have destroyed the business instead of rescuing it. In the elevator, Andrea squeezed my hand, happy. I pondered the question. The anger that had fueled me during those initial days after being dismissed had faded. What was left was not exactly joy, but more a sense of fulfillment and closure. I said, "I'm good." Outside, the October sun warmed our skin as we headed to a nearby eatery. My phone vibrated with a message from Robert Chen. The board had unanimously approved your security budget increase. I smiled softly. No debates, no doubts, only trust. Andrea noticed my face and asked what was on my mind. "Nothing," I answered, sliding the phone back into my pocket. I was reflecting on bridges. Some break under pressure, while others, once fixed, grow stronger than before. This time, I had built mine properly.